So our next panel is called Needed More Cans and Con, and it's about the gender bias of award juries. Our moderator, Hélène Cote, is somebody I've worked with personally at Anderson Lemke. She's a very, very talented creative director, art director, and a fine artist. I actually have one of her pieces hanging in my living room. So let's welcome Hélène and let's talk awards.
Okay, so the most important thing is the two lovely speakers I have with me today. So there's Ali Lariou, and she's CEO of Shout, founder of She Says. She was voted number 29 on the Fast Company list of most creative people. Let me get this, so I don't have to turn around. Voila. She has won millions of awards, as you can see, and has judged just as many awards, so she's very qualified to be speaking to this topic. And then also we have Karen Malia, who's an associate professor at the University of South Carolina, a member of the American Academy of Advertising, and was an SVP ACD at TWA Chiat Day. Okay.
And several other agencies before that.
And yes, long list before then. So let's see, I should do that. There we go. Okay. I think the first thing I'd want to talk about is the statement that goes along with this session. And forgive me, I have a cold, so I'm sounding a little rough. And it's basically, and the award goes to a guy who created a campaign with guy appeal as judged by a team of guys. What can the Clios, the ADDYs, and more do to balance the gender bias of award juries? Does the bias work against women's visibility and mobility in the field? How might shows like the Golden Stilettos, which is Ali's brainchild, which celebrate female creativity in novel ways, change the ratio? So the interesting thing about this question to me is it makes it sound a bit like men are our enemies. Are they? Or are we our own enemies? And I think that's what we addressed in the talk before. Part of it is how we approach things and perhaps how we go after assignments, how we think, what we think about awards, and how aggressively we want to succeed. And I think some of that, we start out in great numbers. I think, Karen, you have research that showed that it's pretty even when we start out in the schools, but then the numbers drop off radically after that. So let me see, what do we got here? I got from Jean Coyne some stats, which I have to say from CA, absolutely marvelous cooperation. I was kind of like looking for information. I shot out an email. An hour later, not only did I have the information I needed, but she'd collated everything and sort of summarized it for me. And I was just absolutely overwhelmed, at how generous that was of her to do. And so these are the numbers that we have. The differences of participation in women versus men. I mean, it's when I actually thought, it's things that we all know, because when you're sitting in the room, you just know that there's a lot more guys in there than there are women, but to actually see the statistics was really a little daunting. So 125 men versus 22 women. So this is once you get to the award ceremonies. But Karen's research shows that it starts out pretty equal at the beginning. So something's going on to do this. Then we looked at the judges, and what you're looking at is basically, it's better if I just do this. For the judges, you're looking at the same thing. There's this huge disparity of women judges versus male judges. So in each case, they invite 9 people to get up with 3 teams. So you get 2 women, 6 men, and 3 women, 4 men. And then there's always somebody that cancels. And then same thing, always about the same ratio. And I judge one of these, and it's exactly what it's like. Sorry, too much? Too much information. Can we go back one? I know, I tried that. Can we go back one? Okay, thanks. Okay. So, Karen, do you want to talk to us about some of your research?
Yeah, I need to step back just a little bit. When I left the creative industry for academia, I decided if I had to do research to get tenure, I was going to do something worthwhile. So I started looking at trying to underscore the factors of why women are being driven out of this business. As Helen said, we start out at 50, and now in undergraduate programs, 60% women. They come out of portfolio schools at about a 50-50 ratio, and they start careers in advertising and in creative, and then somewhere along the way they disappear until we have this diminished percentage. And the factors are really complicated, and if you really want to read the details, you'd have to get through the boring Advertising and Society journal article that I had to do. But that's, the gist of it is that we are sort of pushing ourselves into a corner because we are letting award shows be our currency. That is part of the problem with creative, and this goes beyond gender, is that this is the way we pat ourselves on the back. This is the way we notice people. And it started before social media. So I am of the mind that we might all be better off if we just stop the award shows, because now we can find each other without them. That used to be the only way recruiters found the top talent, was by looking through who won which awards and who was at the edge. But it self-selects men out for the very reasons of what wins award shows. If you look at the biases of the type of advertising that wins, the preponderance is humor, male humor. And some women may be behind that or not, but the type of advertising that wins tends to be that sort of slapstick, sophomoric humor, by and large. Again, these are generalities, but it tends to favor the men who write it. It also tends to favor certain product categories. I don't know how many tampon ads, how many baby food ads, how many of the things that women are marginalized into working in, those do not win awards. So you may be doing tremendous advertising that has great effect in the marketplace, that your clients love, but you're not making the big bucks because you're off in the pink ghetto and it doesn't win award shows, and it becomes a downward spiral because you're not creative when you're working on those things, even if you begin with the same innate talent. And creativity researchers show us not only that are women equal, women and their divergent thinking abilities are actually superior at creative processes. However, they are less successful at creative industries, which is sort of interesting in the way the biases sort of work against women.
What do you think, Ali?
Well, you know, like I don't know whether this is kind of mostly one specific kind of category in the awards, like print or TV, but I had the honor of judging all of them, and you know, I was always on the interactive side of things, and you know, I think and some of this is true. I actually once. I had like I always find myself, for some reason, have a very different perspective from the other judges. Sometimes, you know, sometimes mostly men, sometimes some women as well. But I actually joke because I'm a professional judge, like fighter. Like I argue with everybody, and I always have a different opinion. I don't know why, but I don't think an interactive is as extreme as you're portraying, and I think. You know, it's hilarious when it comes to awards season. I always get asked, because of She Says, I get asked email after email to kind of just, you know, where are the women's CDs? Can you send me some? And actually, I have a list that I just sent to a bunch of people. Because there are quite a few out there, you know, and I'm kind of optimistic that we can do this. So I'm just gonna send my list to everybody I can, and I've actually been invited to chair the interactive for Clios next year, but I can't because I'll probably be in labor. So I think it's just kind of an interactive is not as extreme from experience. And it's kind of odd because it's kind of, you know, in interactive, it could be quite geeky, but it's not as extreme and it's getting better. And I think we should get pushing towards you know, having more women. And that's what I'm trying to do. I just keep sending lists to people and arguing and everything. So trying to, you know, if each one of us keep doing the same thing, I think we'll get there. And to you, I think to your point, like, should awards be killed? I don't think awards should be killed. I think they should be rethought. The way that awards are being run is kind of being like a kind of same old categories for like a long time. The world has changed, the way we work has changed, culture has changed, and we're still going like same categories. same way of thinking. Why can't there be like an award for like best collaboration between brands? The world of advertising has changed, and some of the awards have not followed that. So, if I had my way of doing it, I wouldn't kill it. I would change it.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about your agency that you set up, She Says?
It's not an agency. It's actually, it's called She Says, but it should be called She Does, although it's a little bit porn. Cindy is it. We actually started in 2007 because actually women, all of us, we all know this. We are not so much, people think we're talkers, but we're actually doers. We're always doing things. We do more. We just started, it was like 5 of us in London in a room. Because we wanted to do events that, cover, just help each other, do events that would help women. And then suddenly, 5 became 7,500 in 17 countries without us having to do a lot, and you can start small. So She Says started with events, like we're holding free events for women around the world, done with little money and a lot of agencies and women supporters. It started like that. So events weren't enough for us. So we went ahead and started a mentorship scheme called Who is Your Mama instead of Who is Your Daddy? And it's still going. If any of you guys want to be a mentor or want a mentor, just email us. And then that wasn't enough. So what we did is we created courses for women. We created a career management for women. And then, so we gave women jobs. And then the last thing we created is this platform called Shout, which is an online platform where we actually get briefed from clients, and women professionals reply to it, either if they're full-time or freelancers, and they can complement their skills that way. And, Cindy was trying to create her own model for her own business, and I was trying to do the same in the sense that I kind of wanted to be the best place for women to work in the world. And we worked hard on not just doing another crowdsourcing thing. We gave women points, so everybody that participates gets something. We hold events and we teach them, so it's not even though the work happens online, it's not done into silos and nobody knows each other. So we made the most of this amazing skill that we have, which is called collaboration. I was surprised that the way we collaborate and do work together, I wasn't expecting that, because if someone puts an idea up, another woman creative director or whatever is going to go and comment on it, and the works keep getting better and better, and there is no bashing, and it just gets better. And I think it has a lot to do about the way we collaborate, and that's the last thing that we've done. So we're kind of doing all these things, again, start small, you can do it yourselves, just go do it, and that's what I would say. I think it's been a common theme today here.
I think it's also, as Cindy said, and you've described without saying those words, it's about smashing the paradigm. Because the problem is the paradigm is male. And unless we think about it, and for the most part, women are really good about getting their work done, and they always have so much on their mind. They're about doing their job, and they're really not about what psychologists call metacognition. Just sitting there and thinking about what we do and the larger meaning of it and how it impacts others. I think if we look around the room, I've already spoken to a number of women. Motherhood has sent them out of the industry in terms of the way the industry measures people. The industry measures, okay, the Bureau of Labor Statistics looks and says, are you a creative director? Are you an ACD? You're working at an agency. When you're a freelancer, when you're a consultant, when you start your own business, you're kind of working outside the system and you're trying to make it work for yourself. And that's a wonderful choice if you make it because you really want to, but I think many women are doing it because they cannot work within the system. And the system, it's about time that the system accommodated flexibility and other things. This industry thrives on technology and it's supposed to be at the forefront. It is so far into antiquity and the past in the way it operates, in the way teams are formed, in the way people can work remotely. 15% of the people who can work with flexible schedules or remotely don't do it because they're afraid. Because they're afraid of the repercussions. They're afraid of losing their jobs. People don't take maternity benefits. All because they live under the masculine paradigm that says, well, if you're not in the office and I'm not watching you work, you can't possibly be working. And if you have children, you can't possibly care about your career. It means you're divided and therefore you're inferior. And all of these myths that we buy into, we have got to break the myths that we just buy into unwittingly. We just go about our merry way and we walk into the department and we say, well, if I don't go right back to work, I'm not dedicated. I had the pleasure of speaking to Jane Moss, who, if you don't know, is one of the grand dames of advertising, and she just recently wrote a book, and I had her on a panel at an academic conference. I didn't realize until I met her that she is not just an amazing woman, but she's on a 47-city book tour at 80 years old. Like, I want to be her when I grow up. But she said some things that really almost made me cry, because as proud as I am of her, the woman recounted what she wrote in her book. And she said, well, I'll tell you why I made it and why any woman can make it. Because it was job first, husband second, children third. And I looked at her and I said, that's not how I want to live my life. Why do we have to live by those rules? Those are men's rules. Those are the men that have stay-at-home wives that are through every creative department. They're the people that won't promote you because you're the one who decides that you want to do something other than work. If you don't want to be a workaholic, you're not creative. You're not allowed to be a creative. And in honesty, that we don't have to buy that paradigm. We can shake it. We can change it.
I have to admit, I'm a self-professed workaholic. Workaholic. We can talk about the other. One or the other. They're all the same.
But just to add to what Karen is saying, I think because there's probably a lot of creatives and creative directors in the room. The paradigm needs to be rebooted not only from the infrastructure system, like dads, it's okay to be a stay-at-home dad. It's okay to have your pregnancy leave. It's okay to do all these things. But it needs to go beyond marketing to women, which is something that's been mentioned today. We need to look at the other paradigm that needs to change all the way from the beginning, which is the paradigm of creation and how we create things. Women need to invent their own ways of inventing and creating things and coming up with products and services themselves. And I think when we do that, we're gonna just shift the system a little bit. And like you, I had the pleasure of meeting Heidi, who is a scientist and engineer, founder of Go Approved, and she has a whole methodology where people can look at their truths to then apply these truths and authenticities to products. And then it's mostly a women-based kind of method. And I think, not just the marketing side of things, but we need to look at how we make things all the way from the beginning, how we create products, services, and communications, and rethink that. Because the way that the system is being built, like the way what is being created from the beginning of time is being mostly male. And it's not that that is wrong, it's that we need both. Like a great example is we're working on a mascot project, because all the school systems, most mascots are male. And I don't know what that's telling you guys, but it's telling me that, what is that telling, how are we going to possibly have women leaders if there's just one kind of leadership for school kids through male mascots? So it's not that that's wrong, but we need to rethink and create also female mascots, so we have both. So again, it's not just having the male way of creation, but also the female way of creation, not feminist, the female way of creation going all the way back and not just start with market to women and creating companies for them. It's all the way down to the creation process.
Okay, I'm going to take us back on track to competition now. I know this is all important to talk about, but okay, so now I'm not going anywhere again. Can we go to the next slide? There, okay. All right, so I was digging around and I found this, some excerpts from the University of Chicago study that was done on gender and competition, which was pretty interesting. And the conclusion was that in situations where only the best person in the group is rewarded, males reacted very differently to this incentive than female. And the recommendation was that CEOs creating incentives in their firms should be aware that making the internal environment more competitive might create a bias that helps men while putting women at a relative disadvantage. So what was happening is that they were doing studies with younger children, and they found that men stepped up when they were given an incentive. They behaved in a greater, with greater emphasis, greater visibility. And women behaved the same way, whether there's an incentive or not. I mean, I'm talking real loose here, paraphrasing and all that stuff. But there was definitely something fundamentally different about the female personality in terms of a competitive nature. Now, if you're looking at an award show, uber competitive nature. From the moment the assignment falls on the creative director's desk and you've got to pick a team, you've got people who are scrambling at your door saying, I want in on this. And it's the ones who scramble to the top of the pile who end up competing, the ones who stay up all night and, like try to beat everybody out for the best idea. That's how you end up getting into an award show. Whether an award show is a valid way to judge an industry or not, I think is maybe next year's topic. But I think, that is how it works. And so if fundamentally women are missing an instinct or one that's not a natural instinct, is that something that can work against us without us even knowing it, or is that something that you think that we can, once we're aware of that hurdle, can we work around it? Karen?
I don't know if it's us or them, because I do think that women are just as competitive, particularly the women who succeed. They could succeed because they are, and they have that innate competitiveness, whether that's a masculine trait or a feminine trait. But what's really interesting is there are other studies that show it's the rewards that women seek that are different. The rewards for winning, so to speak, or competing are differently motivating for men and women. Men want titles and they want money. And when women succeed, that's not what they're looking for. They're looking for other more internal sort of rewards and intrinsic rewards rather than the extrinsic. They're willing to trade off other things, and that's got back to do with their character.
I always found titles and money were quite nice when I was...
But
didn't have a problem with that. But I do think, though, one of the approaches of being a female creative director is I never have felt that I needed to be like a guy. So titles and money are great, and I think it's kind of the way that the industry is defined. And so if you want to succeed in that industry, we either have to completely redefine it, and I'm not sure if I like the idea of defining an industry in a feminine manner as opposed to finding a way for it to organically integrate. Like, I should be as successful as a female creative director doing things slightly different than my male counterparts without having to redefine the industry. The industry should be flexible enough to absorb my style into it. At least that's how I see it.
Yeah, I agree. I think but at the moment there is just one way of seeing it, and we need both. And it's not that one is right and the other one is wrong. It's just we need both.
Right, and I think probably the diminished numbers is part of the issue, which is like, what is happening to these women who start out gung-ho, and what are they not doing to get to those positions where they can be influencers, where they can be creative thought leaders? If you don't have female creative thought leaders, you're not going to reshape the agency culture to be inclusive of our style. And I think women have a different management style. And actually, if you think about it, one of the most nurturing jobs I could ever imagine is being a creative director. You have a room full of cats to herd. Everybody has an ego the size of a house. Everybody has a need. Everybody wants to be better and bigger and more visible than the other one. And somehow you have to find some order in that, make them all feel like they've done a great job, like they're all your favorite, and then get some great work out of that at the same time. So, I can't think of a better role for a woman to take on.
You're looking at the feminine paradigm. The feminine. You never worked for Ed McCabe, who basically his way of creative directing was, this is shit, get out of my office and come back tomorrow.
I agree, but I hate that. And I never want to work for that, whether it was a man or a woman. And there are women who do that too. Ali, what is your experience?
Well, like we just before us, we have a different style of leadership, and that needs to be recognized. And it needs to be both. There might be men that like the women's style of leadership, and there might be women that like men's style of leadership. But we need to have both. You know, the way we lead is different. So we have to recognize both. And it's
okay.
You know,
I'm going to have to
yes.
move on. I've
Yeah.
wasted too much time here. Not wasted, but I mean, I'm running out of time. And I can't get there. We go. Okay.
Yeah, we are stopping
All right,
you guys
so
from lunch.
you touched on there's a difference. Male, there was a Nielsen gendered study. Males like slapstick, females like offbeat, but not mean-spirited. I have to say, for me, as a creative person, you all know this. You have to be like a chameleon. It doesn't matter. I should be able to work on tampons and on motorcycles. Because my job as a real creative person is to be able to be neutral, to get into that person's mindset, and to figure out the best way to advertise it. It shouldn't be that I can only work on femi-poo stuff. That's not how it works. So I think if so the next slide is the Super Bowl. All right, that's like a half a minute right there.
Just keep going.
Not going anywhere. Next one. No, can we interrupt? Great. Okay. All right. Well, basically, there was a nice slide there, so let me read it off for you. It's okay. All right. So, okay. So it was, where are all the female creative directors? Jane Guillet, I think is the name. The shift of focus to the Super Bowl is what changed the face of advertising to a predominantly male one. And I think there's some truth to that. I mean, I worked on Super Bowl stuff that did win awards. And yeah, we had several teams, and a lot of them were male. There were some females on there, including Rebecca Rivera, very successful. And so I know it can be done. There is a different approach. I have no problem having that approach. What's your experience?
Well, again, like, why is 2000 and it's 2012, and advertising has changed so much, culture has changed so much. Why is the Super Bowl the epitome of something that you need to go for? I think we need to kind of look at other avenues that we can, whether it's a Super Bowl ad or not. We have to look for other avenues that we can kind of conquer, and I think at this day and age, I don't know, Super Bowl is the best thing in advertising, probably not.
But I don't think that the industry sets up the venue. I think that the people choose the venue by the popularity of the event. I'm not American, so for me, it's like the Super Bowl is like, oh, I don't get it. But, Karen, do you want to talk to that?
Well, I think the Super Bowl is becoming less. I mean, I don't agree with that study. I think it's an anomaly. I mean, I think it's an interesting anomaly, but I don't think I would describe that the whole industry is based off of that or is changing in alignment with that. In fact, I think probably more is different, and Ali can speak to this just being in the digital world, is that there are so many new avenues for advertising, but they're just not that push model of, knock, knock, and annoy me to death. They are integrated, they're content, there are other ways in social of speaking to people and building some kind of connection and engagement with a consumer in completely different ways. So I think that's where, in fact, we have more power, because I think that women are going to innately be able to take control of that model of collaboration and building a different kind of conversation.
Okay. A lot of the new advertising is about engagement, and we are pros at engaging people.
All right, so speaking of engagement, one of the things I'd like 3 seconds to talk about is, what do you think we need to do to encourage women to be more competitive, to get into these assignments and get into the awards? I mean, we can avoid, I think we can sidestep it altogether, or we can be part of it. Is there mentorship? Do women need to have a different approach?
We already do mentorship and all that. We actually created our own awards. It's called the Golden Stilettos. You actually get a pair of shoes rather than something you put in your desk. It's a really good one. It's like Labutin and everything. So, we are small, and we started small, and we kind of, the more we can do, even the smallest thing that you can do to try and push it and change it. Like, we created all these things. It was like, 3 of us, and we probably helped, like last year, we probably helped about 2,000 people. It's amazing what 3 people can do when they just, so I'll just say go do it, you know, and don't think about the barriers, because if you think about the barriers, you go, ugh, never mind, you know, just know that you can and go and do it.
I think that's great.
Excellent.
Go and do it.
Go and do it. And I think celebrate each other, because I think the biggest danger that we have as women is undermining each other, whether we believe it or not. We each have our own way of living, and we are much more myopic about that. I've seen mommy wars between those that are mothers and those who are not, and the resentment that grows there. And that doesn't help any of us. I think we need to celebrate each other regardless of our own particular path, and allow for a variety of paths to be paths to
I
success.
have an assignment for everybody. Everybody who's in the audience who's a creative director or is going to be a creative director, and if you're here, you must become a creative director. It's your assignment. I want you to find somebody to mentor. Find a woman who's talented, who's in your group, and make sure you give that person all the opportunities that you could possibly give her. Give her advice, help her stand on your shoulders. The role of a creative director is to let someone stand on your shoulders and go further than you went yourself, okay? Don't forget that. And let's keep it among women.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Thank you.